Temperature and its measurements. Let's revise and recall. In ancient times, people used the length of a foot, the width of a finger, and the distance of a step as units of measurement. In circular motion, an object moves such that its distance from a fixed point remains the same. Motion that repeats itself after some period of time is called periodic motion. For measuring the length of an object, you must choose a suitable device. Introduction. When we touch a bottle taken out of the refrigerator, it feels cold. Similarly, a freshly prepared cup of tea feels hot. The perception of whether an object is cold or hot is related to its temperature. For example, when an utensil is placed on a burning gas stove, its temperature starts increasing and it becomes hotter. Conversely, when it is removed from the burning gas, its temperature starts decreasing and it becomes cold. Similarly, when water is heated and then removed from the heat source, its temperature decreases and it becomes cold. Hot and cold. In everyday life, we encounter a variety of objects, some of which are hot while others are cold. For example, tea is hot, but ice is cold. Soup is hot, but ice cream is cold. A mug of hot milk is hot, whereas fruit juice is cold. A frying pan kept on a burning gas stove is hot, but the handle of frying pan is cold. Even among the hot objects, some objects may be hotter than the others. Similarly, among the cold objects, some objects may be colder than the others. We usually decide whether an object is hot or cold just by touching it, provided it is not too hot or too cold. However, our sense of touch can sometimes be unreliable for accurately assessing temperature. Temperature. From the above activity, we find that our sense of touch alone is insufficient for accurately estimating the temperature of an object. We need some reliable measure for estimating the hotness or coldness of an object. A reliable measure of the hotness or coldness of an object is its temperature. The temperature of an object is determined using a device called a thermometer. When we touch a pan kept on a burning gas stove, it feels very hot because the temperature of the pan is high. Conversely, a pan placed in a refrigerator feels very cold because its temperature is very low. Thus, a hot object has a high temperature, whereas a cold object has a low temperature. So we can say that the temperature of an object is the degree of hotness or coldness of the object. The temperature of an object tells us how hot or cold the object is. A high temperature indicates that an object is very hot, while a low temperature indicates that it is quite cold. For example, boiling water has a temperature of 100 degrees Celsius, which is quite high and makes it fall very hot. On the other hand, temperature of melting ice is low, which low makes it feel to be very cold. To measure the temperature, we use a device called thermometer. A thermometer has a scale marked on it for reading temperature. The most common temperature scale marked on thermometers for measuring temperatures is the Celsius scales, so the temperature is expressed in the unit of degrees Celsius, which is written in short form as degrees Celsius. In the unit degree Celsius, the small circle at the top degree denotes the term degree and the letter C denotes Celsius. Therefore, the unit degree Celsius is read as degrees Celsius or simply degree Celsius. Fact file. In the Celsius scale of temperature, the temperature of melting ice is given a value of 0 degrees Celsius, 0 degrees Celsius, and the temperature of boiling water or the steam formed from it is given a value of 100 degrees Celsius. Measuring temperature. There are two types of thermometers: laboratory thermometer and clinical thermometer. Both are based on the Celsius scale and use mercury as the temperature sensing substance. When heat is applied to the thermometer bulb containing mercury from the body or object whose temperature is to be measured, the mercury expands and rises in the glass tube thermometer. This allows for the measurement of temperature. We will now describe the construction and working of a laboratory thermometer and a clinical thermometer in detail one by one. Let us discuss the laboratory thermometer first. Laboratory thermometer. A laboratory thermometer is used to measure temperature in a science laboratory. It consists of a long glass tube with a thin bore and a glass bulb containing mercury at the lower end of the glass tube. The top end of glass tube is sealed after removing air. The entire length of thermometer glass tube is calibrated in degrees Celsius. The graduations marked on the tube of a commonly used laboratory thermometer range from -10 degrees Celsius to 110 degrees Celsius, -10 degrees Celsius to 110 degrees Celsius. So, a common laboratory thermometer can measure temperatures from -10 degrees Celsius to 110 degrees Celsius. This is called the range of thermometer. This indicates that the thermometer can measure temperature as low as 10 degrees Celsius and as high as 110 degrees Celsius. If we look at the temperature markings of, say, 0 degrees Celsius and 10 degrees Celsius on the thermometer tube, there are usually 10 small divisions. Now, since 10 small divisions on this laboratory thermometer tube represent a temperature of 10 degrees Celsius, therefore one small division on the laboratory thermometer will represent a temperature of 1 degree Celsius or 1 degree Celsius. We can see a thin silvery thread of mercury in the narrow glass tube of the thermometer. The upper end of this mercury column indicates the temperature of the object being measured. Precautions should be taken to using a laboratory thermometer. 1. Hold the laboratory thermometer tilted vertically or upright while measuring temperature. 2. Ensure the thermometer bulb is completely surrounded by the substance whose temperature is to be measured. 3. Avoid allowing the thermometer bulb to touch the sides or bottom of the container in which the substance is placed. 4. Read the thermometer while its bulb is still in contact with the substance whose temperature is being measured. 5. Read the thermometer with the mercury level aligned with your line of sight. 6. Do not hold the thermometer by the bulb. 7. Handle the thermometer carefully as it can break if struck against a hard surface. A laboratory thermometer is not suitable for measuring human body temperature, because its mercury level quickly falls once the bulb is removed from the mouth due to the cooling effect of the air. This will give a wrong reading of the body temperature. It is clear that for measuring the body temperature, we should use a thermometer in which the mercury level does not fall even when its bulb is removed from the mouth. A clinical thermometer is such a thermometer. Before we describe the clinical thermometer, we should know the meaning of the term kink. The kink is a narrow and sharp bend or curve in the bore of a clinical thermometer tube. Kink, also known as a constriction. The clinical thermometer is also known as doctor's thermometer. Clinical thermometer. The normal human body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. When a person has a fever, their body temperature rises, causing them to feel hot. To measure human body's temperature, a clinical thermometer used by a doctor or at home. A clinical thermometer consists of a long glass tube having a thin and uniform bore and a glass bulb at one end. This glass bulb contains mercury. Outside the glass bulb, a small shining thread of mercury can see in the thermometer tube. The other end of glass tube is sealed after removing air. A temperature scale is marked on the glass tube of the clinical thermometer. The clinical thermometer has temperature scale marked from 35 degrees Celsius to 42 degrees Celsius. A clinical thermometer is a type of mercury thermometer specifically designed to measure the human body temperature. It has two special features which make it different from a laboratory thermometer. 1. A clinical thermometer is designed with a limited temperature range of 35 degrees Celsius to 42 degrees Celsius. The short range of a clinical thermometer is due to the fact that the temperature of human body normally does not go below 35 degrees Celsius or above 42 degrees Celsius. 2. A clinical thermometer features a kink or constriction in its glass tube just above the bulb containing mercury. The kink is crucial because it prevents the backflow of mercury into the thermometer bulb when the thermometer is removed from the mouth. This kink prevents the mercury level in the thermometer tube does not patience on its own. So even when the thermometer bulb is removed from the mouth of a patient, the mercury thread will keep standing at the maximum level reached. Due to this, we can read the correct body temperature of the patient even after removing thermometer from his mouth. To reset the thermometer, a few gentle jerks can be applied to bring the mercury level back down. How to use clinical thermometer to measure body temperature? We can use a clinical thermometer to measure the body temperature of a patient as follows. 1. Wash the thermometer properly, preferably with an antiseptic solution. If antiseptic solution is not available, wash it with clean water. 2. Hold the thermometer tube firmly in your hand and give it a few jerks so that the mercury thread in the thermometer tube falls below the reading of 35 degrees Celsius. Never hold the thermometer by its bulb. 3. Place the thermometer bulb off the nose tongue and gently hold the thermometer tube. Keep the thermometer bulb in the mouth of a patient for about 1 minute, then remove the thermometer. 4. To read the temperature, hold the thermometer horizontally in your hand and rotate it slowly. A position will come when you will see a magnified image of the mercury thread in the tube. Read the temperature on the thermometer tube in level with the top of the mercury thread. This will give the body temperature of the patient. Precautions should be taken to using a clinical thermometer. 1. The clinical thermometer should be washed before and after each use, preferably with an antiseptic solution. 2. Before using the clinical thermometer, ensure that the mercury level in the tube is below 35 degrees Celsius mark. Read the clinical thermometer with the mercury level aligned with your sight. 4. Do not hold clinical thermometer by the bulb while reading it, as this may cause the bulb to break. 5. Handle the clinical thermometer with care as it can break if it strikes a hard object. When examining the scale on the clinical thermometer tube, you will notice that the temperature difference between two big marks, say 37 degrees Celsius and 38 degrees Celsius, is 1 degree Celsius. Between these two big marks, there are 10 small divisions. These 10 small divisions represent a total of 1 degree Celsius temperature. Therefore, one small division represents 1/10 of a degree Celsius temperature or 0.1 degrees Celsius temperature. Thus, with a clinical thermometer, we can measure the human body temperature accurately up to 1/10 of a degree Celsius or 0.1 degrees Celsius. A clinical thermometer typically has two temperature scales marked on its glass tube on the either side of the mercury thread, Celsius scale and the Fahrenheit scale. The Fahrenheit scale, while on the clinical thermometer, usually range of 94 degrees Fahrenheit to 108 degrees Fahrenheit. The normal temperature human body on the Fahrenheit scale is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. While the Fahrenheit scale of temperature was used in earlier days, India has now adopted the Celsius scale, so we should read the Celsius scale temperatures marked on the clinical thermometer. The average normal human body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. By saying that the normal temperature of human body is 37 degrees Celsius, we do not mean that each and every healthy person should have a body temperature of exactly 37 degrees Celsius. Actually, what we call the normal temperature of human body 37 degrees Celsius is the average body temperature of a large number of healthy persons. So the normal body temperature of every healthy person may not be exactly 37 degrees Celsius. As a result, individual body temperature may vary slightly above or below 37 degrees Celsius and still be considered normal. How does a clinical thermometer work? A clinical thermometer measures body temperature by utilizing the principle of thermal expansion. When the thermometer's bulb is placed in the patient's mouth, then some of the body heat of patient is transferred to the mercury in the thermometer bulb. This heat causes the mercury inside the thermometer to expand, increase in volume, due to which the mercury thread is pushed to a higher level in the thermometer tube. The higher the fever of a patient, greater will be his body heat, and hence higher will be the level of mercury, or higher will be the temperature shown by the thermometer. A clinical thermometer is designed specifically to measure human body temperature. Only if used falls within a narrow range. Using it to measure high temperatures, thermometer could damaged. For example, measuring the temperature of hot milk with a clinical thermometer is problematic because the high temperature of hot milk is very high due to would cause the mercury inside to expand significantly. Since there is no extra space in the glass tube of clinical thermometer to accommodate such a large expansion of mercury, the thermometer tube could break. We should also avoid keeping the clinical thermometer in the hot sunshine or near other hot objects like flame. It may break under these conditions. Comparison between clinical thermometer and laboratory thermometer. A similarity between the clinical thermometer and the laboratory thermometer is that both are mercury in glass devices. However, they differ in several ways. 1. Temperature range. The clinical thermometer has a very short temperature range, 35 degrees Celsius to 42 degrees Celsius, whereas a laboratory thermometer has a large temperature range, usually from -10 degrees Celsius to 110 degrees Celsius. 2. Kink in the tube. The clinical thermometer has a kink or constriction in its tube to prevent the backflow of mercury into the bulb, whereas a laboratory thermometer has no kink. 3. Accuracy. The clinical thermometer measures temperature more accurately, up to 0.1 degrees Celsius, than a laboratory thermometer, which usually measures temperature with an accuracy of up to 1 degree Celsius. Digital thermometers. Most common thermometers are mercury thermometers, which use mercury, a toxic substance, poisonous substance that poses disposal challenges if the thermometer breaks. Due to concerns over the use of mercury's toxicity, digital thermometers have become popular alternative as they do not contain mercury. Maximum and minimum thermometer. The maximum temperature of the day, usually in the afternoon, whereas the minimum temperature usually occurs in the early morning. In weather forecasting and other meteorological work, it is necessary to know the highest and the lowest temperatures recorded in the surroundings during a whole day. There is a special thermometer called maximum and minimum thermometer, which automatically records the maximum and minimum temperatures of the day. The maximum and minimum temperatures reported in weather updates on TV and in newspapers are measured using maximum and minimum thermometers. Keyword: thermometer, a device used to measure thermometer. Temperature, a degree of hotness or coldness measured on a definite scale. Synopsis: the temperature of an object tells us how hot or cold the object is. A thermometer has a scale marked on it, which is used to read the temperature. There are two kinds of thermometers: laboratory thermometer and clinical thermometer. A laboratory thermometer is used for measuring the temperature in a science laboratory. The clinical thermometer is a mercury thermometer which has been specially designed to measure the temperature of human body. A similarity between clinical thermometer and laboratory thermometer is that both are mercury in glass thermometers. Most of the common thermometers are mercury thermometers which use a liquid metal called mercury for their working. The maximum temperature of the day usually reaches in the afternoon, whereas the minimum temperature usually occurs in the early morning.